Hello everyone, it is your buddy and your pal Aewch, back again with What You Been Watchin'. Music, please. I want to talk about the art of the gag gift. Now, I think the main thing that makes a gag gift successful and memorable, A, you must use it, and B, it must be within your hobby range. Anything within those two rules, you will watch it, use it, what have you, and it is in one of your hobby's wheelhouses, that's fine. For example, one year for Christmas, my brother got me some Nintendo Switch games. They're fine. But those cases are actually a lot smaller than anything, so he could fit like 2 or 3 inside of a DVD case. And that DVD case is what we're going to go over today. Jetsons and WWE Robo Wrestlemania. So the movie starts out, it looks like it's after a WWE show. All of the superstars are going against each other. Like 20 people stay for autographs or something. If only like 20 people are staying after a show out of a possible, on average, 15,000, that's not the best math equation. So basically, it's everyone cutting promos against each other. Big Show says he's the future champ. Seth Rollins says he's the future champ. Sheamus is on screen. This is all after a show, mind you. But, like, there's no reason they have to keep the gimmick up. The show's over. They can go home. It's so weird. Another strange, weird thing. In the present day, it's curious how everyone looks like the Jetsons characters with a different color palette. And as it turns out, in the future also. So Big Show is obsessed with becoming the champion. He commandeers a small plane, which freezes while in the air during a snow and thunderstorm, and then Big Show threatens gravity. For a cartoon show about the future, it has no idea how science works. So Big Show freezes in midair on the plane keeps going forward, it doesn't crash into anything, it just keeps going into the black abyss. Not even through the theme song, and this is a fantastic movie for content. So we finally get to the Jetsons part. George gets an assignment from Mr. Spacely, he goes on this trip. 2 things. Mr. Spacely says, "George, no surprises." You're the one in charge, Spacely. How is it George's fault that you don't narrow down an itinerary so that things like surprises don't happen to your hapless goofball that you know? And 2, everyone in the future has a New York accent for some reason. Hey, George, where you going? That guy's a real pain in the glutes. Like, it's like 2 sentences away from, hey, George, let's go to the deli for a pastrami sandwich. So George is going on this trip. He puts on a spacesuit to go to the surface of the Earth? There's starting to be an aura of doing things a futuristic way because it's tradition, not because it's practical. And then here's the other weird thing. George's main character trait is he's completely lazy. The only thing George Jetson knows how to do is recline. So Jetson is digging around. They're going to put up a new pylon. He finds the Big Show frozen on the plane. And for some reason, like, touching music starts playing when he finds him. Like he has this deep emotional attachment to the frozen pro wrestler. Like Jetson hides the Big Show from his boss, calls him a surprise. Finding a perfectly intact human specimen, who's alive, by the way. That's $1 million surprise, for crying out loud. So he takes Big Show home, the whole family meets him. Judy Jetson, in a cheerleader outfit. I just found a new type I didn't know I had. So it goes through, it shows off all the crazy, like, Big Show is the regular guy out of his element in the future. According to the future, most, if not all, advancements in technology are to help us become lazier and lazier. Like the moving sidewalks travel 2 feet so we can get next to a person. The tables that feed us. machines that prepare us for bed. It's amazing that humans even have arms and legs that haven't atrophied off from lack of movement. So Big Show gets tired of this family. He goes to find where the WWE is at, which is now called World Robot Entertainment. Like, the W is silent on robot. Look, I had a podcast before all this that did the same cheating of spelling, but this is the future. It should have higher standards than the online freedom of creativity. I'm not gonna let it slide with that. Now, a funny thing in this movie, I actually did get a kick out of. The robot versions of all the wrestlers that featured are voiced by the appropriate wrestler. Although they do voice it like the robots from the 1950s sci-fi. You know, take us to your leader. Where is the main commander, Space Chief? Like, they do it like that monotone way, which isn't that far from how they voiced it in their regular lines. So Big Show fights all these WWE robot wrestlers. He's a huge threat. Robot Roman Reigns is scared. There's a shot of nuts and bolts dropping to the ground. I'm already impressed and amazed at what and how this movie is getting away with these jokes. Big Show becomes the champion of the WWE, which is somehow illegal, and the cops come out. It's like one of those things where someone calls the cops on kids having a lemonade stand. Like, there have to be, like, real issues out there, not the kid who doesn't have a permit. Until Big Show decides he wants to take over the world with all the robots, because the WWE champion can do that? So watching through this, you notice certain animation things are a little weird. If you take a look at this, find some screenshots. Look at the pupils on Jane and Judy Jetson. For some reason, they are crazy dilated on their eyes for some reason. Apparently, the future has no sun, and our eyes just get used to darkness as well. It's so bizarre. So the Jetsons go back in time. They're going to get the current day wrestlers to come back and help them out against the Big Show. It is funny that they point out the fact that they got used to all the automatic stuff. It's like there's this scene, it's just like, where are the automatic sidewalks? They're not here. You mean we have to walk by itself? Scene wipe cut to them tired on the ground. How far have we gotten? And, you know, they're right next to the spaceship. Everything's A-okay, Mr. J. Jetson, not Joker. Anyway. So they're outside the arena. They're trying to figure a way out. Alicia Fox is in full wrestling gear going inside the building, which is in Phoenix, so this doesn't make sense on two frames. Goes, oh, it's cold out here. Maybe wear something more than spandex over just the parts we as a society have deemed naughty. It's called a coat. So the idea the Jetsons come up with to get into the arena, they start dressing up as other WWE superstars. Like Jane is Charlotte, Judy is Becky Lynch, Astro is Kane, full mask included, that's pretty funny. And George Jetson is the main human character from Tron? It's okay, I guess. So they get in, the family sneaks into the arena and becomes enthralled by the WWE live experience. Like, this just flipped the propaganda switch to full power. Like, this just became like Looney Tunes from the 1940s. Granted, Warner Brothers did produce it, but still. Although one particularly funny line, they're all watching it, it's crazy. Jane says, I had no idea humans could be so physical. Which is probably not a huge compliment for George Jetson, if you know what I mean. Here's another one. There's a shot of Michael Cole at ringside. He's doing the commentary thing. Except they didn't animate him wearing a headset. So really, it's just a madman in a suit talking to himself at ringside. Nobody can hear him in this situation, realistically. But we do run into my first major objection in the wrestling scene. Besides, like, over-the-top, ridiculous cartoon sound effects, they do reuse the same scene of animation. I know animation is expensive, that's fine, but there's no need to be Disney from the 1930s and reuse the same frames of animation. Come up with something short and simple, that's all. There's a big cluster in the ring. George somehow gets involved. He gets the pinfall, becomes WWE champion, which impresses Mr. McMahon, but everyone else hates it. Which I'm guessing is a fairly accurate description of that working environment. So George convinces the WWE crew to come along. It's Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, the Usos, Alicia Fox, Vince McMahon. There's probably someone else in there, I don't really care. But the only way, they stretch out the theme song to fit those names. It's like, Seth Rollins and the Usos. I'm not a huge fan of keeping stuff for traditions, but there's only one version of the Jetsons theme song. It is just bump, 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 like, it only those fit in there. Like, anything else just becomes a little bit cringeworthy. So they time travel back into the future. Big Show has gone straight authoritarian dictatorship. You need less WWE superstars and more guerrilla uprisings here. Small note, only some of the WWE superstars who provide voices get to be themselves. Like, poor Dolph Ziggler and Cody Rhodes. They don't even get to be humans, they just do their robot part. At least one of them had the idea to get out. Just saying. So the one thing the movie makes clear is that everything is so automated and stuff like that. But George Jetson has no idea how to drive a spaceship. You see a whole lot of button pushing and hope. That's about all that's controlling that thing. Now give credit where credit is due. Mr. McMahon is at least into the voice acting thing. Like, if there's anything that proves Mr. McMahon is completely crazy, him jumping on Rosie, who turned into a motorcycle, ripping off his sleeves, and starts wearing sunglasses, that's certainly up there. Please let me know if you've seen something else. So they arrive in the future. Everyone's got a big fight scene going on. Like, in terms of voice acting, Big Show's pretty good, Mr. McMahon's pretty good, Reigns is decent enough, Alicia Fox, Usos, Sheamus, they're all fine. Seth Rollins is not an actor. Like, even when he's in peril and making, like, panic sounds, those are rough sounding. It's a lot of, It's not far from what that just did. Scene where George Jetson comes in, saves the day somehow. He does say, it's something along the lines of, now that's how you layeth the smacketh down. Ooh. That somehow brought George Jetson even lower, in my opinion of him. And then actually another one that's actually pretty lame. They do one of those 4-syllable, like the Jetsons try to start a 4-syllable 5-clap chant. Like, you realize those things only work in wrestling. You really can't do them anywhere else. It just doesn't make sense. So Big Show is fighting Sheamus. It's the big ending. They fight it out. Sportsmanship saves the day. Big Show, he's turned around. He turned face. He goes, "Can you guys ever forgive me?" And then the whole town basically replies, "You enslaved us and made us build a giant statue." Which is about the only true logic in the movie. And that is Jetsons and WWE Robo Wrestlemania. Overall, it's obviously not a great hallmark of Hanna-Barbera animation, but I'm not gonna say I wasn't entertained by it, although probably for the wrong reasons. I have, a little nitpicks on the animation. Story doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And honestly, looking at this, you realize how the Jetsons is the weakest show of all the Hanna-Barbera stuff. Because George Jetson is, average man at best. But just because he's in the future, he becomes the main character of this entire show. but it's relatively harmless enough for kids who like WWE and have somehow heard of the Jetsons. Good luck getting those two to go together. And that is the show for this week. You can find me on Twitter at JustAewch, capital J-U-S-T, capital A-E-W-C-H. Check out my blog, aewchspeaks.wordpress.com. And you probably found the podcast here at justaewch.podomatic.com. And as always, the music is provided by the Bass Rebels. Great copyright-free music you can use on your blogs, on your videos, on your streams. I'm assuming podcasts, they don't actually mention it, but still, you can find them, bassrebels.co.uk. Thank you for listening in, everybody. Hopefully we can see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.